And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 ways to hack the system under this understanding that we may be living in a simulation. I'm going to show you ways of getting around some of the things that may hold us back and how we can use certain perspectives to our advantage. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 ways that you can hack the system of understanding how we may live into what we call a simulated reality, simulation. And this has to do with a little bit of a comment that Elon Musk has made that then kind of sparked my curiosity. And then I started to study this, which is actually, there's physics coming out that's showing that there's something called a big theory of everything, which is an explanation for how all of reality works. Whereas a lot of times we get science that only shows how a part of reality works. There may be the study of biology, the study of something else, the study of something else, and people can look at it and they go, oh, this is some of the commonalities, this is some of the patterns. But how everything works together is often something that's not pieced together. However, with this understanding of living in a simulated type reality, this explains everything from a certain perspective. I'm going to share that with you, but I'm also going to share with you 3 ways to hack the system so that you achieve what you want easier than ever. Now, first off, I've explained this story before, but I'm going to give it just a little bit of a basis. So in case you haven't seen my other videos on it, you kind of understand a simulated reality. This is something I find to be very, not just curious, like something I'm curious about, but something very empowering. Because what it implies is that we are much more than we can possibly imagine. And in a way, I believe that life is a form of game. Life is a form of dream that we are dreaming we're having, right? Like I'm in a higher level of consciousness. I believe that we are all asleep, dreaming that we are here, projecting ourselves here. The thing is this reality has a certain level of continuity where we're like, yesterday I did this and tomorrow I will do this. So therefore we create this experience of a consistent dream, which then to us makes us perceive and say, wow, this is very real. But in reality, I think we are so much more than we can possibly imagine. And we are dreaming that we're here. We're just dreaming a long, consistent dream that appears to be something that is very real. We have our senses. Our senses are interpreters of vibration. So I can go over and touch a pillow and go, whoa, this has a lot of sensation. This must be real. But what is real? Because all that is an interpretation of vibration. We can smell, touch, taste, hear, see. All of these things are interpretations of vibration. They are a way for interpreting information. Everything in our life that we experience at a certain level is information. It is a meaning that we put in our mind, or there's a neutrality in our mind about it, but nonetheless, it's a way that we digest data. We could think of it like that. And it's easy to understand it's easier to understand from the perspective of a computer because the computer can be an analogy, but I don't think it's like we live in a computer. I think that that's just the analogy symbol that we use in our reality. I think that it works in a similar way. I believe that we are just in a way kind of in a virtual reality. Now, what Elon Musk said is that he said that this reality that we experience, the chances of it being the baseline reality, like it being the real reality, he says he thinks that that is less than a percentage of a percentage. He said like 1 in a million of a percentage or something. And what that means is that he thinks it's very, very, very highly unlikely that this is a base level reality. Now what this means, what this implies is just like you think of virtual reality. You know, I've shared this story, but my cousin came over we had something going on at my dad's house like a year ago. My cousin came over, he brought his PS3 with this headset that you put on, and it's like a VR headset, and you're looking through it, and you actually think that you are there. You actually think that you are experiencing whatever is in your environment through this VR system. And we played a game to where we were inside traveling through underwater. We were underwater looking around. We're wearing these little suits that were giving us oxygen. Looking around, we were in a shaft that was being descended down into the ocean. Looking around, seeing the fish that are swimming by, noticing the coral on the floor, all of this really cool environment. And it was cool because as you moved your head, so did your environment change. And if you kind of trick yourself, you'd almost think that you were there, but I was aware. I was like, oh, I know that I'm not really there, but your brain almost doesn't know the difference. Now, the cool thing was there was a shark that when it began to swim by, it swam by over in the front, and you're like, whoa, there it goes, and it goes away, and you don't see where it goes behind you. And then all of a sudden, you look behind you, and there's this shark that's coming at you, and it bites into the cage that you're in. You're in this like cage going down, like a scuba snorkeling cage, whatever you call it, and it bites into the cage, and you're like, whoa, it's like right in front of you. You see it like almost gonna bite into you. It tears apart some of the cage, and then you're like, uh-oh, now the cage is open. Now the shark's gonna get you. And then you look down, and as you look down, you see a whole bunch of space. It's almost like feel like you're on a building or something. You actually get scared. So the reason I'm telling you this is because my mind did not know the difference between what I was seeing and what I was experiencing. And the other cool thing is that the VR technology we have now is not even like a percentage of what it will be in probably 5 or 10 years. This is the very early stages. Like imagine a brick phone. Now we got the iPhone. It could all do this cool stuff. But imagine you got like a brick phone, like one of those big phones that used to talk in the 80s if you were around then. Like it's ancient compared to what we have now. Now in the same way, if this is already the case where the brain doesn't know the difference between what it's experiencing to what is actually happening, imagine in 5 or 10 years where the technology is going to be. We're not even going to know the difference between what is reality and what is not reality. Now, knowing that this is a potential within our own life right now, what's to not say that at a higher level of consciousness, we may exist, we may project ourselves into this reality for a certain purpose. Now, what could that purpose be? I think the purpose could be to learn. I think the purpose could be there's something as frustrating as it may be to have things kind of slower here. I think that in the higher levels of consciousness, things happen very quickly. It's just like in a dream state, higher level of consciousness, when you're in a dream state, things happen, you can think of something, it almost immediately happens. Now, our dreams, we go to bed at night and we wake up we're in our dreams and we're like, oh, we're having a dream. I could do what I want. It's kind of cool. We wake up in the morning and we go, oh yes, that was a dream. That wasn't real. This is who I really am. But the only reason we think that is because the dream is a little bit more random. We think it because we are here right now, so that must have been a dream. That must have not been real. But what if from a higher level of consciousness, we're actually awake at a much higher level of consciousness we can imagine, but our brain gives us symbols as to what we may have been doing in these dream states, because we wouldn't understand from different perspectives. We can only understand that which our brain understands. You know what I mean? It's not like we can understand something that's beyond that of the dimension of time and space within we live in, So this is about understanding the possibility that maybe we live in more of a simulation. We're dreaming that we're here right now, and that because we're dreaming we're here right now, there's a certain kind of experiences we can have. Now, one of the most powerful things we do is we realize there's a correlation between what we are thinking and what we are experiencing. This is called sometimes the law of attraction, deliberate focus. When we focus, we can then experience more of what we want. And this is because there's certain what are called rule sets of reality. There's certain rule sets for how things work in our life. These rule sets are like laws, like the law of gravity. We've agreed to have this kind of collective dream together, and part of the collective dream is we're going to have this thing called gravity that keeps us all on the planet so that we don't fly away. There's the rule sets such as the law of attraction, where whatever we focus on grows. Whatever is like unto itself is drawn more of. So then we notice that, and we're like, okay, well, if I think negative thoughts, I feel separated. If I feel positive thoughts, if I think positive thoughts, I feel more connected. So these are different aspects of certain rule sets we may have. There may be rule sets about the way cosmology works, about the way our reality works. And part of this is becoming aware of the correlation between what we think and what we experience. So that's my spiel as to the simulated universe we may live in. We may be dreaming that we are here. We may be immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences for certain purposes, because here things go up in a little bit slower. In higher dimensions, things happen very quickly. So it's almost like instantaneously. But here you get to think about what you want. You get to intend for it to happen. You get to go through some of the challenges along the way, because there's more learning to be done in that experience than being in a higher level of consciousness where just things happen. As much as we say, oh, it'd be so amazing to just think of this and this happens, as much as we say that, it's not necessarily the case from a soul level, from a spiritual level of consciousness, from how we can interpret the kind of experiences we have. So, with that being said, The first way that we can begin to hack the simulated universe that we may live in is understanding our thoughts, understanding the direction they're going in, and understanding something called rule sets. So, have you ever seen it to where somebody has like beginner's luck? Like they haven't done something before, they do it and they're successful at it. But maybe after they do it and they're successful at it, maybe after that, they start to develop an expectation, they start to lose it. Maybe somebody's like, oh, I'm going to go play a certain video game, for example. And they play a video game and they're playing it and they're doing really good at it. But then after a while, they start to get frustrated. They start to develop certain patterns. Maybe eventually they get better at it, but then they feel resistance and things don't happen as easily. Maybe it's a certain sport. Maybe it's a certain type of art, whatever it is. This is because there's no expectation as to past experience that is driving the expectation of what could happen. And a lot of times something very good could happen because there's not that expectation. However, many times when people begin to have an expectation, they create a pattern, and what happens is based on the prior pattern, it's more likely that we continue to create that over and over and over and over again. So the key to it is almost seeing things as fresh, almost seeing things as it's your first time ever doing it. Because what happens is anytime we go into the past way of thinking, into the autopilot mind, we then create from an autopilot type creation mode. It's almost like we can't create anything new because we're always doing the same thing over and over again. So what this means is the more we get outside of our comfort zone and we do new things, the more we have an ability to tap into something that is a greater degree of change. So this is a way that I found to hack the universe or to hack a simulated reality we may live in, because when you go to do something, if you keep doing it from the same energy, if you think the same thoughts every day, if you feel the same emotions every day, if you take the same actions every day, you're going to get the same results every day, because that is on an autopilot rule set that we have created. Because we've conditioned this pattern into us, we create the same thing over and over and over again. So the key to this is to more so see how we can bring in something new, how we can begin to create from a perspective of I'm going to do something I've never done before, because then we get outside of that same rule set of how things have to be, of feeling frustrated or some type of just pattern that we've already created through conditioning. So a hack for that is to simply, there's a hack that I use that has to do with setting a trigger for me to wake up from the autopilot mind. So what I do is this trigger that I call it the change technique. It's something I think I learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza. You go like this, you go change. Clap your hands, change. And when you do this, it changes your physiology, because then you're sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this. And you go do it and you start doing it the same old way you've always done it, whether that's maybe some type of, maybe me filming videos or me doing something and doing some type of creative work, and I'm always thinking the same thoughts over and over again. Sometimes when I go to make an Instagram video, for example, I get into the same mode where I think of the same thoughts. Like I'm gonna always do this video on self-image or something like that, and I'm like, why am I always trying to do this video on self-image? Well, anytime I think of Instagram and trying to create a video for it, for some reason my mind goes there. So clap my hands, change, and then I change my physiology, and then I focus on something completely new. I focus on a new perspective, and that kind of shakes me out of that rule set, of that consistent pattern. Anytime I think about Instagram, I think about making a self-image video, you see. So you can use that for anything. Set a trigger for you to remember that is the key, to do something new, to step outside of the norm, because when you do new things, you gain the ability to not have this pattern recognition that's going to create the same experiences over and over again. Everything in our life that we experience is about probability, because it's about shifting through this experience of the simulation, and we create things to be more probable when we set intentions, when we do new things, when we get outside of our comfort zone, and these are ways that we can begin to increase the probability of certain things happening. The second hack to that of us living in a simulated universe or a simulated reality could be that of understanding this idea. I think this is so powerful, especially when we begin to apply it. It's understanding the system itself. So just like we have an individual point of consciousness, something we want to experience in our life, in the same way, there's this collective consciousness that we are all collectively having together. We're having our own dream of life, but there's billions of other people having their dream of life. But at a fundamental level, we're having this dream of life together, and we're relating to each other, because there's more to be learned when we're relating to other people. If we're in our own reality, just us, one point of focus, there wouldn't be that much to learn because it's just boring. We're just on our own planet or something like that. But having more people makes it more fun. The key is understanding to the dream itself, to the simulation itself, there is a purpose of the simulation itself. And that is to lessen what is called entropy. Now, entropy, think of that as chaos. Think of that as disorder. And the purpose of the system is to lessen the degree of entropy, which means to almost increase the intention of unity, for us to become more unified, to learn, but also to integrate things into our lives, to integrate experiences, to integrate a connection. So when you see this, this is how I use it. I'll be honest. I already hack the system of the simulation in a way. And I've been doing it unconsciously, because what I do is I always have this intention to add value to other people. You may have heard people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who's like, take a lot of action, add value, add value. I believe this. I believe the more value we add to other people, the more good comes to us, because what you put out is what you get back. The more good you put out, the more good comes back to you. So my core business model is how much value can I add to other people, in knowing that the more value I add to other people, the more that comes back to me. So it's a win-win. So I'm always looking to give more, because at the same time, the intention of the system itself is to grow, is to lessen the chaos. And a way that you can lessen the chaos is by increasing the level of compassion in you, is by increasing your level of awareness, is by expanding your awareness, like I always say in the beginning of my videos. So that's my intention, because I realize the system has an intention of itself. And if you're only in it for yourself, if it's a lose-win situation for everyone else, then you're not going with the system. You're going against the system. So it's about being aware of that. Doesn't mean you have to be the system's little, like going around doing everything for everyone else. But what it does mean is you're in your passion, and you link up your passion to adding value to other people. Maybe you create amazing art. Instead of just seeing it as art, see it as something that wants to be expressed through you. See it as something that add value to other people, because as they're in their house, they're looking at that piece of art. They're like, damn, that's a cool piece of art. You see? So it's about having this understanding of the system itself. And I choose to base my whole business model around it, and it works very well for me. I find that things come back to me. I put out all this good energy, at least what I perceive to be good energy, and a lot of people feel that, and that comes back in different ways. So understand there's a system, there's an intention of the system, and if you haven't begun to integrate your passion into that of adding value to other people, I highly recommend you do it. Because when you do it, you'll find that things happen easier for you anyways, because you are starting to go with the system. So the third part I want to talk about is that of understanding social conditioning. So just like, imagine there's this grid around the planet. Imagine there's a grid, an energy field, just like there's energy fields around our body in the simulation that we live in. And imagine that around these energy fields, there's certain thought forms, there's certain ways of thinking. And when people think similarly, we grow these thought forms to where then many times we'll think we're having our own thoughts, when in reality we may be having the thoughts of social conditioning. Social conditioning is the whole perspective that society will tell you, or you will hear on the news. The news is a form of social conditioning many times. Oh, it's bad out there in the world. Is it really bad? Statistically, it's been shown that we're living in the best time ever, that things are continuing to get better, but the news will make it look like things are horrible. So when you watch the news, you're kind of getting those thought forms I'm talking about, like the electromagnetic energy around the planet, we start to link up to those thought forms, and we start to think those are our thoughts when they're really the thoughts of social conditioning. So what are other forms of social conditioning? Well, it could be that of, gotta go to school for 4 years, go to school for 4 years, and then you can work a job for 30 years, and then you could eventually retire, then you could travel the world. That's a certain thought form. Nothing wrong with that if you're going to school. I'm not saying school is bad. I'm just saying that a lot of times people are just kind of doing whatever the social conditioning is. They're just going through the motions of it and saying, oh, this is the next logical step. So what I encourage you to do is to step outside of that bubble, to realize you are so much more than you could priorly imagine, and to know that you don't have to agree with everything that you are told. You are creating your own reality. And when you see that some people's beliefs, they're trying to regurgitate them onto you, or even unconsciously, they're just kind of the way it is, like that's just the way you think you see reality. Reality is what you make it to be. You step outside of the way reality is supposed to be, the social conditioning, when you begin to think for yourself and you begin to say, what do I prefer to believe? That's all up to you and your own preference of what you want to believe. And you can begin to re-architect your own belief system by simply deciding and becoming aware of where the social conditioning already is in your life. When you're doing something, ask, why am I motivated to do this? Why am I not motivated to do this? Begin to find why you do what you do. Ask different questions. Become more aware of these. And anytime you're feeling triggered, become aware of what this is. Be able to observe your thoughts rather than react to it. These are all things that as you begin to do, you begin to deplug from that of social conditioning and then to replug as to who you are meant to be in your life. So remember, we may live in a simulation. We may be dreaming that we're here right now. We may be immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences, and we may forget who we are at a greater level. Remember that there's certain hacks you can use. Simply becoming aware of the correlation between what you think and what you experience is already a step ahead. And if you watch my videos, you're already there. So congratulations. Another thing about this is the key of the system itself is to lessen entropy. It's to that of increased love and increased win-win scenarios. The more value you add to other people, the more that comes back to you. The more that you are just yourself, your authentic self, the more you add value to other people, because energy is contagious. So that's something that I think the more you put out, the more you get back. And the more you become aware of all of this, the more you can begin to see that this is about lessening the social conditioning, being yourself. And as you do this, you begin to create what you want in a very powerful way. So another thing I've done is I've created a free guided meditation that will help you to raise your vibration, which gives you more ability to navigate through this simulated reality. It's absolutely free. You can put it in, you see in the top of the description box below. You can download it and listen to it for 21 days, I recommend. I think it can absolutely change your life. Another thing I'll be doing is more live Q&As on Instagram. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, I'm going to go ahead and link my Instagram right here as well. I also do daily content there, daily IGTV episodes, and more interaction. So if you want more interaction from me, go ahead and follow me there. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the little notification gear on the next subscribe button so you can see the daily vids that I do. That's the way YouTube does things now. And other than that, I'll see you on the next video. Peace, much love, and namaste.